On today's video, we'll be having the amazing Tolu AJG, actually Tolu Ali, right, teach you guys about retouching. I already did a video on editing. I'm going to do another one, but if you want to see that one, click the link above and let's get into the video.
Hi everyone, my name is Tolu AJG Ali and I'm going to be showing you the my method of high-end frequency separation. And most of the time I start with my Lightroom and then move into Photoshop and then back into Lightroom. I'm going to show you all of the process for that in obvious details and stuff. I hope you enjoy this video and I hope you learn one or two things. Okay, so you guys can see my screen. We're going to start by opening Lightroom. And obviously in Lightroom, we're going to get the opportunity to import the picture that we want to be editing. Ooh la la. So to import, I usually like to use the short, what's that called? The short command for importing, which is Command Shift and I. For Windows, that will be Control Shift and I. And that gives me the options for different folders and where exactly to import it from. So right now mine is under Pictures and I put it in Retouching M. I'm importing two different pictures because, I'm going to decide which one we want to use while we do this. So now we're in Library, we have both pictures imported. We're going to look at both of them. One is much better lit and has, better expression in a sense, because she kind of has a head tilted, gives a little bit of sass, a little bit of zhuzh. Meanwhile, this one, you can see her eyes a little bit more. So I'm still torn. Anyway, so what I like to do inside my Lightroom is try to adjust the lighting a little bit. Reduce contrast, increase contrast, work on, our highlights, shadows, and all of that. If I need to do any little tweaks before taking it back into Photoshop and then editing. One thing though, I will let you know is do not color grade before taking it into Photoshop. Always color grade after. I've made that mistake multiple times, but trust me, you just want to do a few tweaks here and there. For example, now we're increasing exposure just to create a bit more, exposure on her face, and then reducing contrast just so we don't have too much, shadows that it now hides like our major features that look really good. We're going to work on shadows a little bit here and there. You can see the difference that it makes when we do that. Yeah. And then maybe work on my whites. I doubt I would want to work on my whites as much. Nah, not too much. Just 15 blacks. Nope. We're increasing that. And so let's see the before and after, what it looks like. This is where we're coming from and this is where we are. Now, I don't want to lose that color. So obviously I'm going to work on my vibrance a little bit. So that brings my colors back, right? Careful with that. I don't like using saturation because it does the most. Come on, look at this. What's this? Please. So yeah, this is the before and this is the after. After doing this, obviously, I'm going to take it into Photoshop. So here we go. What you would need to do is basically come to the image, right click on the image, and then go to Edit In, and then Edit in Adobe Photoshop 2025 or whichever Photoshop whatever year or version of Photoshop that you're using, and that automatically opens up my image in Photoshop. Now it opens up usually as a raw file, and then when I start to work on the image, it actually starts to save it as a TIFF file, which basically contains all of the layers of changes I've made in the picture, maybe dodge and burn, frequency separation, all of those things. We're going to talk about all of that now. So this is what we have, our edited image from Lightroom. And what I want to start with is, like I said, frequency separation. And the first thing to do with that is going to be to duplicate our background layer over here twice. So I'm creating two duplicates of that, and I'm going to be putting that into one group and naming it frequency separation, just so I can tell the difference if I have to create multiple groups or multiple layers. And the first layer, the idea for this is to be able to separate the skin color from the skin textures. So I'm going to name the first one color and the second one texture. It's exactly what it sounds like. The skin colors in terms of like the tones we can see on the image, and the tones we can see in the image, the highlights, the shadows, all of those things. Meanwhile, the textures are more about like the blemishes and the hair follicles or the hairs that you can see on the face. Those things fall under textures, and all of the skin pores and everything. If we zoom in, we can definitely see those textures, right? So of course, this image is really sharp, so you can see all of those things. If you're taking a picture and it's not sharp, there's a very high possibility that your texture is going to be affected because it will be blurry. So you won't be able to get all of these details you can see on my screen right now. Okay, cool. So what we're doing is we're starting with the color layer, which when we want to work on the color layer, we have to turn off our texture layer so we can focus on that. And so we click color and we go to filter. In filter, we come to blur and then Gaussian blur. So what Gaussian blur does for us is for us to be able to focus only on the colors and basically subtract the colors from the textures. That's the most basic way I can explain it. So that way, we're able to work on the color layer without affecting the texture layers. So we're going to take this up. If we go to 0.1 now, for example, we're going to see that we can see all of the textures very clearly around here on the skin. And what we're going to do is increase our radius up until the point where we cannot see the most obvious texture on the skin. So which would probably be like a blemish, like this pimple or this one over here. But I would rather work with the one on her forehead. So we're going to be increasing that slowly and see the difference that it makes. If you see from here, you can see that the textures are disappearing slowly. So that's what we're going to be doing up until the point where the major thing that we can see is the colors of that area. We cannot see the textures anymore. So we're currently at 4.8 and we're going to keep going. And it can be very tricky because for some images you need to go higher. Some images you need to come a bit lower. So for this one, we're just going to be going around 6.0 because that way we can only see the colors of those blemishes. We don't necessarily see the textures as much anymore. We don't see textures at all anymore. So you don't want to overdo it by going this way. You can't see any difference in texture. But yeah, so we're sticking to 6.2. That 6.2 should be fine. And we'll click OK and we're back to our image. Now, let's work on our texture layer and subtract the textures as well because we've just subtracted the skin color alone. Now, turn on your texture layer back, which I just did. And then we're going to the image panel. And under image, we go to apply image. Now, what we can see here is, different. Because obviously, like I said, we're working on the texture layer. So from here, remember that I said we're subtracting the skin layer from the total layer. From the total picture. So when you remove the skin, what do you have? The texture, right? And since we want to focus on the texture, we're going to be subtracting the color from the overall image, leaving us with the texture. Cool? Cool. So for layer, we will select color. That's why we're selecting color. For our channel, we're working with RGB, which is the entire image, right? And then we're going to go to blending and we'll change our blend mode to subtract. This automatically puts our scale and offset to 2 and 128 consecutively. Why? I cannot exactly explain right now. However, if it is quite common for certain people to use, maybe for example, for this 8-bit, for a 16-bit image, they use add and then they leave it at 2 and 0 or 1 and 0. Meanwhile, for my own picture, or for my own method of frequency separation, I like to use subtract. For whether it's an 8-bit image or a 16-bit image, I stick to using subtract, setting my scale to 2 and offset to 128. All right, cool. And that's pretty much it. Then now we come to our blend mode for that particular layer here, and we take it from normal into linear light. Now we've got our textures. We've got our textures intact. If I want to show you now, if we zoom in, this is our texture, as you can see very clearly, and this is our color. If I turn this off, we can see only colors. If I turn this off and turn the textures alone on, we can see obviously a lot of texture. So we're going to turn both of them back on and now start our frequency separation. Personally, I like to work on my textures first because that helps me get all of the blemishes I need out of the way before I start to blend in the colors and all of that. I will be using a Wacom tablet for my editing. I've been using this for years and that served me amazingly. So I'm going to be blending this. I'm going to be blending the skin or taking out my textures with this particular tablet. To blend in our textures, we're going to be using a tool called Clone Stamp. So obviously, tools are basically tools you use in Photoshop. They help you, they obviously serve different purposes and all of that. If you're using some of the newest versions of Photoshop, they tend to give you an explanation for what each tool does. So for this particular method, right, we're going to be using Clone Stamp to sample areas near the blemishes and then using that to cover up the blemishes on that side. For example, we will sample. The way to sample is to hold Option or Alt, click on the place you would rather use to cover up your blemishes, and just paint over your blemish, just like that. See? And just like that, the blemish is gone. And we're able to, if you can see a blotch on that particular area, it's something that we can definitely fix when we're working on the skin, which is why I like to do the textures first. So we're going to be fixing the blemishes with the Clone Stamp tool, and we'll be sampling from an area close to where the blemishes are and then painting over that. So for example, this one, I like to zoom in so I can see very well what I'm working with when I'm working on the texture layer. Kindly note. For the color layer, I like to zoom out so I can see the entire face, but we'll get to that point. So I sample, Option, click, and then paint over where I am working with. So Option, click, paint, click, click, paint, click, paint, click, paint, click, paint. Like that. And before you know it, we have already fixed, this is before and this is after. We've already fixed 2 different blemishes at the moment. The colors look, those particular places look blotched, but like I said, this is one of the reasons why I prefer to do my textures first before my colors, obviously, or before my skin colors. So I'll be doing that all around for the entire image, just taking out things that I would rather take out, like stray hairs, pimples, some overly texturized areas. For example, this area, if I want to reduce the textures there, I can just, sample around a few of them, just so it still looks a lot natural. Yeah, pretty much that. So I'm going to be doing this pretty quickly and just speeding through this particular process. So we just need to try as much as possible not to sample from somewhere with a different color or a different kind of similarity in texture, because if you do that, there is going to be that obvious mark of, oh yeah, you sampled from somewhere that it doesn't look as similar, and you're going to have issues blending that in when you're working on your color layer, if you get what I mean. Let's see what we have here. The fact is, this particular model actually doesn't have so much blemish, and it makes retouching her skin much easier. And so it won't take as long as someone maybe who has more like blemishes, rashes, pimples, things like that, that needs to be taken out and blended much smoother. Because if we had that, obviously, this is going to take a lot longer and it will require a lot more precision. So like I said, I just like to zoom in, look around, find textures I don't like. Now, for example, see this line here? I will gladly take that out because then it looks like a crack in the makeup. And I really don't want that to, look weird for whoever the makeup artist is or who has done that. And then also for the person particularly, it just doesn't look good overall sometimes. Sometimes the lines actually, smile lines look fantastic, amazing, especially for what you're going for, depending on what you're going for. But for this, nah, doesn't blend well. So taking these out. All right, cool. So this area of the face usually has a lot of textures. Close to the nose, there's almost always so much texture for everybody. So you need to be very careful when you are, clone stamping this area. Let's just call it that. So we're just working on some of them that are slightly bigger than the others, that don't blend really well with the skin. And then sampling the area that doesn't have too much textures, and then going with that, going forward from there. Cool. Cool. So like I said, precision is required. Yes, I'm zooming in this much. Or else you're going to zoom out and it will still look like the face doesn't look as smooth just because of that. But once again, I don't want to create a plastic effect, which I've noticed with a lot of people. The retouching can be very plastic, which is not my style. Some people like that, but it's really not my style. So I would rather just like stick to my method of keeping some textures, making it look more natural. Just looks like person has amazing skin, not like they just used watercolor on their face. So yeah. Okay, so overall I think I am satisfied with where I am for blending the textures of the skin. You can also look around this the chest area if that is revealed, and just take out a few things if you see anything you're uncomfortable with. And let's just do that. So I'm going to be taking out some textures here, just a little bit of texture, increasing my, I'm not sure I mentioned this, but you need to be able to use brush sizes that correspond with the blemish you're trying to cover up. So don't make it too big or too tiny, or else you would not cover it smoothly and would not look natural. So depending on where you are, you need to increase or reduce different textures, different areas of the skin as well. You can see some of these gold patches on her skin. I think that was highlighter used by like the makeup artist. But it's harmless, but I like to take them out sometimes. Cool. I should have worn my glasses. Alrighty. Here we are. So here's what I'm saying about like her skin being like really good, because we didn't have too much to edit from her skin. See the difference? You can barely even see it when you move back, but this is the difference. This is after and this is before. After, before, like that. Going to take out a bit more texture here. just so I can get rid of that line at the, this nose area. It looks like there's like a line there, and it's the textures there that are causing that. So I'm trying to get rid of that so it's not as obvious. Cool. It's still kind of obvious, but we're going to sort that on the color layer anyway. All right, so now that we have our textures out of the way, we're going to be working next with our skin colors. Sorry. We're going to be working next with the skin color, which we are excited about. You can't take this part out. Okay. So now for the color layer, we're going to be selecting color, obviously, because that's the layer we're working on. For whatever layer you're working, you would want to fix, you need to make sure that you're selecting the correct layer. Also, I didn't mention the settings for, our clone stamp. I always leave my opacity at 100, flow at 100, and then the sample, we always sample current layer because that's what we're working on. And we're trying as much as possible, like I said, not to affect any other layer. In different cases where you're trying to do something else that is not frequency separation, you can use these other options that they've provided. But for this, we're just working on texture, so we're selecting current layer. Now we're moving to color, and the tool that we're going to be using now, remember we talked about tools earlier, is mixer brush. Mixer brush is under B, and here we have it at the bottom here. For some people it can be here with other brush options, but for this we have it here and all. So what we're doing for this is very, once again, precise. I always make sure not to zoom into my image too much, or zoom into my subject too much, because then you can't see what differences you're making when you're brushing over the skin. And you want to be very careful with how you brush over. So what we're going to be doing is looking for places that seem like it needs a bit more blend, like it needs to be a bit more seamless. For example, where we took the textures out of, we're just going to carefully brush over that, right? Don't apply too much pressure and just brush. Slowly, that goes away. There we are. Now see before and see after. We're not doing too much. That's the best part of this type of retouching. Don't do too much. So carefully we brush over like certain blemishes here and there. But one thing you need to take note of is, as you can see different tones on the person's skin, try not to blend different colors into each other. Because when you do that, it starts to look unrealistic and flat. And then you start to lose dimensions on the face. So the idea behind retouching is that you're trying to enhance the person's look or enhance the person's face, not change their entire face shape. Because doing that, blending different colors into different, maybe for example, blending the highlights into the shadows or shadows into the highlights, can completely change the person's face and make them look different from who they really are. And then that flattens the image, and then we obviously lose the purpose of this type of retouching. So we're going to take this under eye area and just brush slightly over that. Making sure that we're not doing too much. And at intervals, always check your before and after. Remember the line we talked about that I said I'll deal with on this layer? We're going to reduce our brush and then brush over that carefully. See? And now that line is gone. See before and after. It's gone. Okay, so we're just going to do that for the rest of the face. If there is any other thing I need to point out, I'll just let you guys know that. This area is much bigger, so we have a little bit more liberty. We can increase our brush a little bit, not too much, and then just brush over it. Okay, cool. Check before and after. See? Sometimes there are certain shadows that could be blemishes. You can brush over that, but just don't do anything significant to now change the person's overall look. Before, after. Cool. God, I'm good at this shit too. So yeah, brushing slightly here and there. For smaller areas, you want to make sure you're using a corresponding brush size. I'm not entirely sure if I want to brush over this area yet, but let's just keep going. Because if I do, it might look good, it might look unrealistic. So this is how it is when we brush over that area. Cool. That's not bad, so we can leave it. I'm not going to do too much on there. And then if you notice, our textures are still intact. We still have all of the textures that we had before, and we're not doing too much there. Once again, the key is to not do too much. Don't do too much. Don't apply too much pressure, and just slowly take your time and blend. On the other side, we want to reduce our brush size a little bit more because we're getting into all those nooks and crannies. Cool. And then remember I said don't blend your shadows into your highlights. And for the points where the highlights meet the shadows, try to go in a circular motion, just so you don't have a distinct separation between the highlights and the shadows. Because if you do, then it looks unrealistic again. So at those points where, for example, here, where the highlight meets the shadows, you want to go in a circular motion like that, so it blends better into each other and it looks like you've blended it properly inside Photoshop. Cool. And then lastly, do the forehead for her face, and then we'll move to her neck and arms. Cool. There is a particular blotch here I want to take care of. Yep, all done. And then here as well, just blend that area. I'm trying to blend the highlights into the shadows. Remember what I said, circular motion, not too much pressure. Just blend slowly into the hair and not too much into the hair because you can affect the hair as well. So before, after, before, after. There we go. Cool. I think we're good on the face. And then we move to the neck and the body area. Now, for this, once again, we're using the exact same method. So we're not blending our highlights into our shadows. We're not blending our shadows into our highlights. That's what we're doing. And then for the places where they join, circular motion. See, blends perfectly. This person has amazing skin. Once again, amazing skin. Kudos to you. If you're watching this video, she has amazing skin, so we don't have to do too much, honestly. See here where there's highlights, I just move in a circular motion sometimes, and then at the points where it joins, more circular motions. For the blemishes, we brush over that left, right, front and back, like that. And then we just keep going, not blending everything into each other in a sense. See? So we're getting rid of certain marks here and there. That could obviously look weird if someone's looking too much at that. Now, for this area, for the dark pits, some people don't mind it, to be honest. But like while you're retouching, it depends on, maybe for example, when you were shooting the person, if you felt like they were comfortable with you can just leave it. Sometimes I like to blend it out. Sometimes I don't think it looks too bad, so I just leave it. But for this, I'm just going to show you how, if you're going to blend the dark bits out. So what you need to do is blend the similar skin texture close to the dark bits. Just blend it into the dark bits. So into the darker areas, so like that. And we see before and after. It's much clearer or much brighter. So see before. Now for this part, I'm going to blend into here, just so we don't have too much of like a color variation in a sense. I'll do that for these sides as well. There you go. Not blending the highlights into the shadows, except I'm trying to change the color of that area. Nothing like that. It's not needed. I'm going to paint over here. You know, I still like, you see all of these places where sometimes there's highlights, there's shadows here. We don't want to blend that in because this is what's going to happen if we do that. Now we've lost all of the highlights, all of the shadows, all of the dimension for that area, and it looks fake. Does that make sense? So we're going to undo that and back to normal. So yeah, I'm blending the highlights, not into the shadows. Just keep going. Once you understand the basics of that, everything just becomes much easier from there. Here, just painting there. Not too much pressure. And for here as well. There we go. Exactly. You see, we're killing it. Killing it. Looks amazing. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. And this is our before. This is our after. Before, after, before, after. The only part of the face that we didn't really work on was the nose, which usually I don't do too much there as well, like I said. So I just realized I forgot to work on the nose. The exact same technique we've been using all through is what we're going to be using to blend now. You can always, of course, look through the image once again, try to see certain things you might have missed in the first place. Certain things you might have missed in the first place, and then just correct that. Honestly, there is no perfect way of doing it. There's just a technique that you get to adopt and make your own. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. I think the only thing is the under eyes. There are a few lines here that I would want to take out, but just not as crazy as taking the entire thing out. Just a little bit of it. Let's create a bit more seamlessness. So I'm going back to my clone stamp. We're going back to our texture layer, and then sampling and brushing over like that. See how we've been able to maintain our textures but still work on the color layer and it doesn't look entirely fake? Yep, that's how you do frequency separation. All right, cool. And I'm not taking out everything, like I said. I still want some of those lines. That is what makes it realistic and natural. These things, they don't make you anyhow. This is not completely natural. This is completely part of who you are and it's beautiful. So don't take it out completely. So yeah, just taking some of these out and just blending that in. Cool. And there you go. And we're good. So this is where we're coming from, and this is where we are right now. Where we're coming from, where we are. Nothing too crazy, simple adjustments left and right or here and there make a perfect, seamless, natural image. Cool. Now we're going to close this group because we're now done with frequency separation. Of course, if there's any other thing you want to do, personally, I'm fine with this. But if there's any other thing you want to do, happy to do that. Go ahead. So the next step of this technique is to go into dodge and burn. And for me, once again, I like to control my dodge and burn by brushing. So we're going to be using the normal dodge and burn technique. So the way to do that is we'll create a new layer. This layer is just empty, there's nothing on it. But we're going to be filling it with a gray area. I'm going to show you. So we'll go to edit, then go to fill, or you hit shift and F5 if you want to go through the shortcuts, and then you go to contents and hit 50% gray. Now in doing that, we leave our blending mode at normal and our opacity at 100%. Do not click preserve transparency. We're not trying to do that. And then we're going to hit OK. When you do that, we're going to have a gray overlay on our image. And what we want to do is duplicate this layer. Before we duplicate the layer, we need to change the blend mode from normal to soft light, which is right here. We click soft light, and then now we duplicate the layer. We're going to put both of them in a group, and then name one dodge and the second one burn. Cool. Dodge is that. Remember the tools we talked about. So there is a dodge tool and there is a burn tool. So for the dodge layer, we'll click the dodge tool, which is right here. Once again, it gives you what exactly the tool does. So it says lightens areas in an image. So what we're going to be doing for the dodge tool is focusing on the highlights of the image. So highlights here. These are the highlights, obviously, these places. And then the burn tool darkens the image. So we work on the shadows for that. So I've selected dodge, and now for my range, I always select mid-tones, right? And so that doesn't only focus on highlights or only focus on shadows. It just literally gives me like a mid sweet point for me to work on. And then my exposure is at 3%. Let me show you what the exposure does. This at 3%, I'm going to brush over here. You can barely see it. I have to paint over and over for you to be able to notice it. Meanwhile, if I move to 100%, you can definitely see that. So what we're creating is what we're trying to do with the dodge tool is trying to make as minimal effects as possible with our dodge tool. So I always put it at 3% for dark skin people. Sometimes higher if it works for the person. But 3% is quite a neutral spot. For someone that is more light skin or even a white person, you can go with 1% because very little can go a long way. So cool. I'm going to adjust my brush for my dodge tool to the size of the area I'm working on, just exactly like we did it in our frequency separation on our skin layer. So we're going to brush carefully over this part, over the highlights, and not exceed that. Now this is the traditional dodge and burn method. That's what majorly what it's called. And some people tend to use dodge and burn for frequency separation, which, to be honest, is actually also an effective way of doing it. But like I said, it requires a lot of precision. And I mean, if you are happy to go through that process, we can definitely create another video like that for you and show you how it's done. But right now, we're going through the traditional dodge and burn method and all of that. So this is before our dodge. Just focus on looking at this area. And this is after. Very simple, very subtle, but it makes the most difference in the long run. And so we're just going to do that for the rest of the face with the highlights. Check before, check after. We always want to see the difference we're making. Just so we're making sure that we're not overdoing it. Because if you get lost in this and keep going, there's a very high possibility that you're going to do too much. Before, after. Cool. Just going to brush a little bit over the shadow here to give her face a bit more dimension there. Because I like how that V shape looks for her. And I think it fits her face better. So we're just going to do that. Brush here, before, after. Perfect. Now we're going to the nose. brushing over the highlights just a little bit. And then here as well. There we go. These areas. You can see as I'm increasing and reducing my brush to fit wherever I'm about to paint. Do that for the lip as well. You can zoom into this, honestly, for the lip because, you know, there's smaller areas that you need to work on. But to be honest, it makes the most difference when you are working on it. So paint all of these places here and there. I tend to not retouch the lips. I like to leave the lips as naturally as possible. So that's most likely why you would have noticed it when I was doing my frequency separation. I did not touch the lips. I barely do that. And so in dodge and burn is when I try to, you know, highlight some things here and there and then just make it a bit more enhanced. That's the only time I work on it. Okay, and then these are the more precise parts. Then the other highlights, I just brush a little bit over it, like that. And then we can check before, after. If you want to see what it looks like before, after. Very little, but worth it. So let's go to other parts of the face, like here. This over here. Brushing over those places here and there. Even for the jewelry, you can definitely do that, increasing highlight. It just makes it more shiny, gives it a bit more zhuzh. Brushing over the highlights once again. I always do this exact same technique for the shadows as well. So yeah. To be fair, some people like to turn off the frequency separation layer so they can see what the original image looks like. And most of the time when they do that is because they've actually over retouched they've overworked on the color section when they were working on frequency separation. For me, I usually don't have to turn it on turn it off because I can still see what the original image looks like because I didn't overdo it. But let me just show you what it looks like. This is when you turn it turn it off, you can now see the original highlighted areas and just brush over that instead of where the frequency separation was done. And just paint over it here and there, you know, some parts of it. And you can see some highlights in the hair as well. You can definitely brush over that. Now you see where the exposure is left at 3%. For places that are not so highlighted, we can control how many times we brush over it. For the places that are very highlighted, we can paint over and over and over until we're satisfied. So that's the idea. I'm just doing that. I think I'm good with the dodge tool now. Yeah. Okay, the last part for the dodge is the eyes. I am a lover of using the dodge tool for the eyes. So for this one, because the eyes are white anyway, right? I always make sure that I move my exposure to 100%. Everybody's eyes are white. Not everybody, but close enough. So I brush over this carefully, just once, because when you do it too much, it now feels unrealistic. And then the inner eyes as well. For this one, you need a bit more precision. Brush once over it, and then or until you're satisfied, really. But for me, once is all I need. Exactly. And then for that tiny blotch in the middle, that tiny highlight, just do that. Yes. For this as well. Perfect. And there we go. See, even that tiny dot now looks unrealistic now that I've added it. Does it not? Yep, that looks unrealistic. So I'm going to take it out because I don't like to have unrealistic parts of it. So I'm taking that part out and I'm just leaving it as is. Cool. Let's see. Before, after. Now we can see how much brighter our eyes look. Before it looked a bit more, covered up. It looked a little dull. And so when we used the dodge tool, kind of brightens it up a bit. Now we can see the before and after of what we've done. Just creating a bit more highlights, creating a bit more dimension to the face. And now, so let's go to the burn tool and do exactly the same as what we've just done. But this time around, we're focusing on just the shadows. Now to go to the burn tool, because it is in the same section as where the dodge tool, you just need to right click on it and it shows you other options. So dodge, burn, and then sponge tool. For this, we're using just burn, not sponge. And then the exposure, once again, the range is at midtones. Exposure cannot be 100% because this is what is going to happen. So I'm moving it down to the corresponding number of what we used for the dodge tool. I always make sure that they're within the same number range. So if I use 3% dodge, I'm definitely using 3% burn. That way the contrast between both of them is not ridiculous. Do you get? So I'm doing that now for the shadows. Exactly what we did for the highlights. And it should be fun. I'm not turning my frequency separation off. Well, maybe I'll turn it off at a point, just so you can see. Then we brush over the shadows here and there. Check before, after. There we are. You can already see it. They're very small effects. See, as a retoucher, you need to be able to see small differences. Or else you're going to be doing too much. Or as a photographer generally, you'll just be doing too much with everything. So we're just brushing little by little. And we're also protecting our tones. Yes, always make sure to check this protect tones section, because then it won't change the color of your model. Or else you could brush over and then it starts to look gray. And that's not what we are going for. So cool. Highlighting the shadow, just darkening it a little bit. We're not doing too much. We're working, sometimes I brush over the eyebrows because it works for some people. And if I don't like how it looks, I just undo it and move on with life. I like this one. Cool. Yeah, I think I like it. Cool. And then we'll do the shadows for the rest of the face and we're good to go. So because I really like the shadows that this lighting created, I'm just going to brush over it a little bit. Doing the same for the neck. I'm lost in the way you move, the way you feel. One kiss is all it takes. Fall in love with me. Possibility. I look like you're better than this is all it takes. Why do you look?
I might go try those parts.
Eh?
I'm not going to try those parts.
Why?
Before they copyright my video.
Oh, with my voice. Come on. My voice is that good. Hey, Scala. You won't copyright it, don't worry. Just darkening. I don't like how dark that made. It made that. So I'm just going to brush it a little bit. And just do that. And the good thing here is when you're doing dodge and burn, you can always go back to sorry, I brushed over that by mistake. You can always go back to your frequency separation to fix anything that you thought maybe you didn't cover initially, and just do it. For example, I just noticed something. So I'm going back to my color layer because I just noticed this area was not brushed out well. So I'm going to mixer brush. I'm just going to brush over that subtly. Cool. and it's fine. This place as well. Cool. Before, after, cool. I like that. So this is where we were and this is where we are. Going to do the burn for going to do the burn for her chest as well. Brushing over some places. I love the neckline, so I'm always keeping it that way. I love how this area always looks when I work with some models. It's so nice. Usually if you're working with like an accessory shoot or something like that, it's always so nice. Cool. I think we have what we need right now. Also, you can name your group, like I said, dodge and burn. Like we named the frequency separation layer earlier. So we just name that dodge and burn. Yeah, I'm just going to save that. Once that is saved, now here's the best part of this. Because I started in Lightroom and imported into Photoshop, all of the changes I've made on this image would be effective in my Lightroom. So if I go back to Lightroom now, which is here, I'm going to have my TIFF image. It's called a TIFF image. I call it TIFF anyway. I'm going to have my TIFF image in my Lightroom right here. So this is showing what we have created in Photoshop. I didn't retouch her hair because her hair looks really good anyway. So yeah, and this was before, and this is where we are after. Everything looks pretty good. This is what we have. So we can group that and now try to see, let me just call that the end. We can now put that in a group and just to compare where we started from to where we are at the moment. So I'm going to turn this layer off and we can see, some of these blemishes here have been taken out, in this area. I leave some textures on purpose, so I left some textures on purpose. Overall, we've been able to work on most of the textures, been able to take out blemishes, blend out her skin, her neck, just to make sure it's not unrealistic. And yeah, I really like what I have. So if we zoom out, we can see the picture very well. We can also crop for example, for Instagram. So we can go to the crop tool by clicking C, or just go to the tool here. And then if we click that, one thing that Photoshop can now do for you because of AI is expand your image. So you can use generative AI or generative expand to, show the entire image, and then it blends out it generates the other parts of the image for you. So you just have to expand to where it is. But for this image, I just want to bring it down to where it is. Just show this more, reduce the head space and focus on her. So we're going to bring it down to that and just hit done. Are we good? Going to hit done, and this is what we have. So we have more focus on her face and less focus on the environment. So I really, really like that. I'm going to save that again, and it should be evident in my Lightroom. Now, the next deal, I'm going to wait for that to finish saving. Okay, we're done. Next deal would be to go back to our Lightroom, and this is what we have. Let me show you where we're coming from and drop this here. So this is what we have now. Cool. Yeah. So now I'm going back to Lightroom and I'm just going to grade if I want to. If I need to, remember I said that you shouldn't grade before taking it to Photoshop. This is the perfect time for you to grade. So there are some presets on the left here that you can use. Lightroom comes with some presets as well. But I'm just going to sample some of these things. Ew, no, nope, yeesh, Jesus Christ, oh my God, no, what, nah. I mean, I could use this and just reduce like the amount or something, but I don't even think I like it enough. I think I prefer the natural look. Well, actually, this is not bad. And then I'm just going to separate my subject a bit more from the background. So I'm going to come here in mask, select subject, and then come here to exposure and try to increase exposure a little bit. Yep, I think I'm fine with that. And we're good. So this is what we have. I like where we are. And this is before, this is after. Because what this does is just enriches the tones a little bit more and makes her skin look a bit more vibrant. And then darkens the background, what makes her pop a little bit more. And once this is done, you go to File, go to Export. There are different obvious settings for export, and then just put in like edited final, whatever. Your quality should be 100, between 80 to 100. Usually I prefer to use 80, so you can put this at 80. I don't limit my file size at all because that will reduce my quality. And then we'll go to content credentials. I just leave it. Image sizing, I don't resize anymore. But resolution, I always put it at 72. 72 pixels per inch. And then sharpening, I sharpen for screen. Amount is always standard. I don't make it high because then it starts to look shiny, which is not great. And then you include your watermark, of course, if you want to include that. And just hit export. Once you export, you should have it go to whatever folder you pick. Because I'm not sure if I showed you that, but you can select your folder, export to same folder as original photo, and then put in a subfolder. But here we have our final image exported and ready to be shared to anybody that would like. So this is where we are with our final image. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know if this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, feel free to reach out, and I will be in the comments helping people out. And of course, Ali would also be helping anyone out who has any other questions. Thank you very much for watching the video up until this point. If you actually did stay, I hope you've learned one or two things, and I will not see you on the next one. Have a great day. Bye.